brought to mind really a huge amount of information I could discuss. I won't obviously take the time to do that here. But you pointed out my having said or such that there was a book by a certain Frederick Hoffman, written in 1937, by the way, and who wrote at that time a 500 and some page book on diet and cancer. Okay, I had been on several National Academy panels about in the early 70s, one of which was diet, nutrition, and cancer, and so I was really quite active in it at the time. And so this was the first report of its kind to come to the Academy, so it got quite a lot of publicity. And we thought we were being clever, bringing this up for public discussion, if you will, and finding some data. But the interesting thing was that we only went back to the 40s, maybe, almost the earliest. And I, at the same time, was getting into some trouble simply talking about animal protein having a role in causing cancer. It caused a lot of difficulties for me in a sense. And then I had the chance, given the Hoffman book in 37, I found the Hoffman book. One of my graduate students had told me about that. Apparently at the time, there were only about 3 copies left in the country, one in the Library of Congress, one in Oxford University, where I was spending the year at the time, and one at Cornell. The 1937 Hoffman book was really interesting. Here was a gentleman who founded the American Cancer Society, Frederick Hoffman, in 1913. Eventually went on to do some long-term studies. Actually, he was really a very busy fellow, but got written off because he suggested that nutrition was the single most important thing to consider as far as cancer research is concerned. That was 1913. From 1913 onwards, there were a lot of difficulties. Nutrition kind of got dropped by the wayside. And so, and I've been very much aware of that. It's a very contentious topic, by the way. And then I had a chance to go back and look at history. Where is all this stuff coming from? And I'll just make one major point here. What I found in the 1800s, late 1700s, 1800s, was some information it was really exciting. There were 2 theories of cancer formation in the 1800s. Namely, one side said cancer is just a local disease and we can cut it out. You can guess who those people were. I mean, they were the surgeons. The other point of view was that cancer was a constitutional nature of disease, as they said. And there were some lively debates at that time, went on for some 20, 30 years. And what that brought up for my consideration was local theory on the one hand, constitutional data on the other. It turned out, if you look at history from the middle 1800s forward, either in the field of nutrition or in the field of cancer or other diseases, what I really came to be pretty fascinated with was that what we took up as a profession in medicine, if you will, or medical research, nutrition research, the line that we followed was the idea, the local theory of disease. That morphed into very specific ideas about using chemicals to treat cancer, very specific ideas about using radiation therapy, if you will, or cut it out. I mean, those are the ideas. We went down this reductionist road, I would say, very local disease kind of thing. That became our existence and throughout the entire biomedical enterprise, I would suggest, whether it's in research or whether it's in a clinical setting. We went down this road as if this is the best of science. You look at one thing at a time, one nutrient at a time in my particular field. We did that too. I did that in my early research. And so, and then looking for one mechanism. And what I come away with that thing that Hoffman got forgotten when he said in 1913, let's follow nutrition. I came to learn about nutrition being a very different, I hate to use the metaphor, but a very different animal than what I thought it was. Nutrition is not about the effect, it's not a summation of the effect of individual nutrients. It's a combination of all of them work together. And when you look at in the metabolism of them working together, you see the answer. And so I obviously came up with this concept that I've gotten really fascinated with is a holistic phenomenon which runs almost at odds with the way we have lived. And the difficulty of understanding nutrition and cancer, for one, is that we tended to look at one nutrient at a time, whether it was observational studies and trying to adjustment for confounding, or whether we're doing it in the laboratory using one thing at a time. We always tended to focus on this one nutrient at a time, which I found very distressing. it's indicative, it's useful to point to a larger sphere of thinking. And so the nutrition and cancer field, if you will, kind of drifted along, not but paying much attention to it, because everybody's looking for, the specific cause of cancer, usually environmental chemical, something like that. Obviously, interacting with the gene, so therefore it's got a genetic basis, so forth and so on like that. And then we look for a single chemical treatment to treat cancer. And it turns out to have been, I don't know if it's time to go in here, but a massive amount of confusion for the public and for the profession. And so nutrition is never really surfaced, as a serious science, particularly in relation to cancer, whether it's causation or treatment. You go back and look in history, it just seems like it really came from that idea that local theory led to fixed ideas. And as long as you could fixate on one thing at a time and get some intellectual property protection to protect that one idea, whether it's a product or a thought or whatever, then you got a business model. That became the profession. Whereas in reality, that's not nutrition. I don't consider nutrition to be a subject concerned with the activities of individual nutrients. To me, that's pharmaconutrition. That's not nutrition. And so we ended with a huge amount of confusion. We kind of touched on it here a few minutes ago. And so what I have really become fascinated with is that if we want to get answers as to what this really profound effect of nutrition on cancer, let's say, can be, we've got to back off, redefine nutrition, and look at it from a very different perspective in terms of analyze the data, whether it's observational, whether it's intervention, or whatever the case may be. So sorry for, you asked a big question that had a long history for me. I'm in this whole process, I'm going down the road initially, arguing that animal protein is good. That's where my background was. And then all of a sudden I come along and questioning it, I got into a lot of trouble with that. So I know what it's like to contend with the system, if you will, but it was a lesson for me to know the kind of debate that goes on and the vitriol that occurs in this field. And so it ends up being a bit of a mess. And so I almost have to apologize for my own field, to be honest about it, my field of nutritional science, more particularly nutritional biochemistry, because we too looked at one nutrient at a time, particularly during the 20s and 30s, when they're isolated nutrients to do this and something else. When in reality, that's not biology. That's not biology. But when you look at it in the totality, especially in the biochemical milieu within the cells and between the cells and stuff like that, you see something radically different from what we tend to think science really is. Very exciting. I just touched on a lot of topics here that probably end up being a little controversial in a sense, but it is exciting. I have to say, nutrition is a big deal for me.